Imagine that cop being racist, thinking they've got the upper hand, only to realize too late that you're not who they thought you were. What if the person they just tried to arrest was someone they could never have imagined? This isn't just any arrest. This is a story about power, prejudice, and karma. Stick with me to find out what happens when the truth comes crashing down. Let's dive into this unbelievable moment. Let me introduce you to two people who couldn't be more different. First, there's Nia Jackson. She's an FBI agent, strong, focused, and smart. But life hasn't been easy for her. As a black woman in law enforcement, Nia faces challenges every single day, being underestimated, having to prove herself more than anyone else, and constantly dealing with people who don't believe in her. But she pushes through it all because she believes in justice. Nia knows what it's like to fight against the system, but she's built for it. Now, let's talk about Officer Ryan Harris. He's a middle-aged cop, and honestly, he thinks he's better than everyone around him. Harris walks around like he owns the streets, believing his badge gives him the right to do whatever he wants. He's always been a bit too confident, using his position to push people around, especially when it comes to people like Nia. He's racist, and he's never had to face the consequences of it. One night, the two of them cross paths. Nia's driving home after a long day, and Harris sees his chance. This should have been just another traffic stop, but it's about to turn into something neither of them will forget. It starts out like any other night. Nia's just driving home, exhausted from a long day at work. She's thinking about her next steps in a case, mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. But as she turns down a familiar street, she sees the flashing lights behind her. A sigh escapes her lips. She's been pulled over before, but something about this feels different. "Officer," Ryan Harris steps out of his car, and right away she feels it. The way he looks at her, the way his eyes linger for just a second longer than they should, makes her uneasy. She's used to being treated this way, but tonight feels like something is about to go wrong. Harris approaches her car, and without any reason, without any explanation, he starts barking orders. "Get out of the car," he demands, voice thick with superiority. Nia stays calm. She's used to this. She's faced far worse, but she can feel the tension building. There's something in the air, a sense that Harris isn't just pulling her over for a simple violation. He's trying to make a point, trying to show her that he's in charge. He doesn't even ask for her license and registration right away. Instead, he just starts making assumptions. "What are you doing in this part of town?" he sneers. Nia knows the question is loaded. Harris isn't asking for information. He's making a judgment. The way he looks at her, like she doesn't belong, only makes it worse. But Nia knows better than to react. She doesn't give him the satisfaction. "Just heading home," she says coolly, hoping to end the exchange. But Harris isn't done. "Step out of the vehicle," he repeats, this time with more force. His tone is sharp, like he's trying to provoke her. Nia hesitates for a split second, trying to weigh her options. She knows how to handle herself. She's been trained for situations like this. But something about Harris's behavior makes her blood boil. She's tired of being treated like she doesn't matter, tired of people thinking they can walk all over her because of the color of her skin. Taking a deep breath, Nia slowly gets out of the car. She stands tall, looking Harris square in the eye. There's no fear in her expression, only quiet determination. But Harris doesn't back down. "I'm not going to ask you again," he spits, hand resting on his holstered weapon, clearly trying to intimidate her. He's not just arresting her, he's making her feel small. Nia's heart races, but her face remains calm. She knows better than to give him an excuse to escalate things. "What's the problem, officer?" she asks, her voice steady. "That's the problem," he says with a smirk. "You think you're above the law. You don't belong here." His words hit harder than she expected. But Nia holds her ground. She's been here before, and she knows how to navigate these dangerous waters. But what she didn't expect was for Harris to start questioning her identity, "Let me see your ID," he demands, his voice now a mix of suspicion and superiority. Nia reaches into her pocket for her ID, but as she pulls it out, her FBI badge slips free and falls onto the ground. Harris's eyes snap to it, but he doesn't believe it. "What's this?" he sneers, bending down to pick it up. "I'm an FBI agent," Nia says, her voice firm. She's not afraid. She's not backing down. Harris laughs, almost mockingly. "An FBI agent? In this neighborhood? You've got to be kidding me." His eyes are filled with disbelief. For a moment, Nia wonders if he's going to tear the badge up, just to prove that he's in control. But he doesn't. Instead, he gets angry. Really angry. "Stop lying to me," he growls, moving closer to her. "I've heard it all before. You're just trying to get out of this." Nia feels a rush of frustration. This isn't just about her. It's about every time someone like Harris tries to make her feel like she's not enough. The moment feels like it's spiraling out of control, but Nia refuses to give in. But just as she's about to say something else, Harris snaps his fingers, calling for backup. "You're under arrest," he declares, his words final. But Nia knows this is far from over. The moment is just getting started. As she stands there trying to keep her composure, the sound of sirens in the distance grows louder. She's surrounded. The bystanders watching from the sidewalk whisper among themselves, some in support of Nia, others unsure what's going to happen next. The tension in the air is thick, almost unbearable. Everyone's waiting for the next move, and as Harris stands there, ready to make the arrest, he doesn't realize that the situation is about to shift in a way he never saw coming. The backup arrives, but it's not what Harris expects. Instead of supporting him, the new officers immediately sense the tension in the air. They can feel something is off, and it's not long before they start questioning his actions. Harris's face flushes with anger as he realizes the situation is slipping out of his control. "Why are you arresting her?" one of the officers asks, his voice calm but firm. Harris doesn't answer at first. He's too busy trying to hold on to the authority he's always had. He's the one in charge, right? But something about the way the backup officer asks the question makes Harris hesitate. It's as if they're suddenly seeing him for what he is, a man whose biases are clouding his judgment. Nia stands there, silent but not defeated. She watches as the officers start looking between her and Harris, some of them starting to doubt his story. She's been in situations like this before, but there's something different this time. The tension between them is palpable. Harris isn't just trying to arrest her anymore. He's trying to save face, and that's when Nia realizes he's scared. "You can't do this," Harris snaps at the backup officers, trying to take control again. But his voice is shaking. He's not as confident now. The sense of power he had just minutes ago is slipping away. Nia's mind races as she watches him unravel. She knows exactly what's happening. He's losing control, and it's all because of the very thing he thought would give him power. His badge. His badge is now a symbol of his failure, and he's too proud to admit it. "You're under arrest for misconduct," one of the backup officers says, speaking directly to Harris. Now, the words hit Harris like a punch to the gut. The man who once thought he had everything figured out is now being handcuffed by his own colleagues. It's a stunning moment. He looks around, searching for an excuse, a way to turn the tables, but there's no escaping it now. Nia takes a deep breath, her emotions simmering beneath the surface. She's calm, almost unnervingly so. She's been through so much worse, but today, in this moment, she feels a different kind of satisfaction. She's not just watching Harris fall, she's seeing the system work as it should. He's finally facing the consequences of his actions, and Nia can't help but feel a small sense of victory. Harris stares at her, his eyes filled with disbelief. You're really an FBI agent," he stammers, the cockiness from earlier completely gone. It's as if he's just now realizing who he's been messing with. Nia doesn't flinch. She just nods, her eyes unwavering. "I told you." Her voice is calm, almost too calm, but it's clear she's not interested in his apology. She's beyond that. She's not here for justice in a personal sense. She's here to make sure people like Harris don't get away with this kind of behavior anymore. The backup officers turn their attention to Nia, finally seeing her for what she is, a professional who deserves respect. But the damage has already been done. Harris stands there, his hands behind his back as the cuffs click shut. His arrogance has led him here, to the very moment he thought he controlled, but now he's the one who's powerless. As Harris is led away, Nia feels a strange mix of emotions. Part of her wants to celebrate the moment, but another part knows this is just the beginning. The system that allows officers like Harris to abuse their power hasn't changed. The victory is small, but it's still a victory. The crowd, which had grown during the entire exchange, starts murmuring among themselves. Some of them nod in approval, others still shocked at the turn of events. It's clear that this encounter will be remembered long after Harris is gone. Nia watches as Harris is driven away, his face now full of regret. She knows that the fight is far from over. But for now, she has one small win, and she won't let it go unnoticed. Just when Harris thinks things can't get any worse, the phone call changes everything. He's standing there, handcuffed and humiliated, still trying to wrap his head around what just happened. He can't believe his own colleagues are taking Nia's side, questioning his every move. His mind is racing, but that's when the phone rings. The officer who answers the call looks up, his face changing instantly. It's like the air in the whole place shifts. He hands the phone to Harris, who stares at it for a second, still stunned. When he speaks, there's no denying the shift in his tone. "What do you mean?" Harris asks, his voice shaky. He listens for a moment, and his face slowly starts to pale. I didn't know about this," Harris mutters, but it's already too late. The revelation has hit him hard. His entire world feels like it's spinning out of control. The person he thought he was talking down to, the one he tried to make feel small, is not who he thought she was. "You didn't know?" The officer looks at Harris like he's losing his grip on reality. He steps back as Harris starts to tremble. The phone call confirms what Nia had been saying all along. Harris isn't just facing a bad traffic stop. He's facing something much bigger than he could ever have imagined. Nia Jackson isn't just any FBI agent. She's a senior officer, someone who's been deeply involved in investigating cases of corruption that, unfortunately, Harris himself is wrapped up in. The call reveals that Harris has been under investigation for months now. His racial bias, his misconduct, his entire career, everything he thought was secure, has been hanging by a thread. The realization crashes down on him. His face is full of disbelief as he tries to comprehend what he's just heard. He thought he was in control, that he could intimidate Nia, that he could push her around. But now, all of a sudden, everything is upside down. His whole career, his reputation, it's all coming apart in front of his eyes. Nia watches him, her gaze steady. She's not gloating. She's not rubbing it in. But she knows. She knows exactly what's happening. She's been part of the investigations that have exposed the rot in the system. And Harris, he's one of the people who's about to be exposed. It's a moment of pure karma. Harris doesn't even know how to respond. For the first time in his life, he's completely powerless. The things he's done, the way he's treated people, the way he's used his badge, none of it matters now. The phone call is the final blow, and it's coming from the very system he thought he could manipulate. He looks at Nia, but there's no arrogance left in his eyes. It's replaced with something far worse: fear. He knows what this means for him. His actions have finally caught up with him, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. Nia feels a strange sense of satisfaction in the moment, but it's not because she wants to see Harris suffer. It's because she knows that justice is finally at work. This isn't about one cop, one bad day. It's about the entire system that has allowed men like Harris to thrive for too long. But now, everything is changing. As the realization sinks in, Harris finally slumps. His once proud posture now crumbles under the weight of his own mistakes. He's been caught, and there's no going back. The law that he once thought he could bend to his will is now the very thing that's going to take him down. The officers around him begin to move with purpose. Harris is no longer in control. The power he thought he had is gone. He's now just another man, exposed for his corruption and bias. The truth has come out, and it's taken everything from him. Nia watches all of this unfold, but she doesn't say a word. She doesn't need to. The truth is louder than any words she could speak. Harris's life is about to be turned upside down, and the law that he once used as a weapon is now the thing that's going to destroy him. In the days that follow, Harris's world unravels quickly. The investigation into his actions, his racial biases, and his corrupt behavior has begun, and there's no turning back now. He's been exposed in a way he never imagined. He thought his badge would protect him, but instead, it was his downfall. The system he relied on to hold power is the same system that's now pushing him out. Nia, on the other hand, is left with a mix of emotions. She doesn't feel victorious, at least not in the way most people might expect. There's no joy in seeing Harris pay for his actions. Instead, there's a quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing that justice is being done. She's been working for years to expose corruption, and while this moment feels significant, Nia knows that it's just one battle in a much larger war. The real work is still ahead. For Nia, it's not about one bad cop being taken down. It's about a broken system that allows people like Harris to exist in the first place. This situation might feel like a win, but there's still so much to do. She knows that her fight is far from over. Every day there are new battles to face, new injustices to uncover. But today, she can take a breath, knowing that one person has been held accountable. The community around Nia begins to see the change too. The news of Harris's corruption investigation spreads, and the people who once watched this unfold from the sidelines now feel a shift. Some feel anger, others feel relief, but all of them are talking about it. For many, it's the first time they've seen real justice at work. People begin to speak up about the things they've quietly accepted for so long, about the racism, the biases, the injustices that have always been just below the surface. And that's the real power of what happened. It wasn't just about taking one man down. It was about shaking the foundation of something much bigger. For Nia, there's a quiet reflection in the days that follow. She knows she's made a difference, but it's bittersweet. There are still others out there like Harris, people who think they can use their power for their own benefit. Nia knows that the fight for equality, fairness, and justice is a long road. But this moment, this small victory, gives her the strength to keep going. As Harris is taken through the legal system, his career and reputation crumble. The world he thought he controlled starts to shift beneath his feet, and the man who once stood tall, filled with arrogance, is now reduced to just another figure in a long line of people who've been exposed for their wrongdoings. There's no coming back for him. His actions have caught up with him, and now he faces the consequences. The lesson here is clear. Sometimes the truth catches up with you in the most unexpected ways. Harris thought he could get away with it. He thought his position gave him power over others. But in the end, it was his own biases and misconduct that led to his downfall. The system he tried to manipulate ultimately took him down. For Nia, the morale is this. Justice doesn't always come in an instant, and it doesn't always feel like a win at first. But when the truth is revealed, there's no hiding from it. Harris's downfall wasn't just a personal defeat. It was a victory for everyone who's ever been silenced, for everyone who's ever been wronged by people who think they're untouchable. It's a reminder that no matter how powerful someone may seem, no one is above the law. As the case continues, More people start speaking out, encouraged by the bravery Nia showed. Her quiet strength has sparked a movement, one that will continue to grow as more people begin to demand change. Harris's downfall might be just the beginning of something much bigger. And for Nia, she knows that this isn't the end. This is just one chapter in a long fight for a more just world. What happened to Harris is a reminder that no matter how much power someone thinks they have, the truth will always come to light. He thought he could get away with mistreating others, using his badge to hide behind, but in the end, it was his own actions that took him down. Nia, on the other hand, showed us what standing up for what's right really looks like. It's not about taking revenge or getting back at someone. It's about doing what's right, no matter how hard it might be. She could have easily given up or let Harris have his way, but she stood tall, and that's what made the difference. So, what does this story teach us? It's simple. Truth and justice have a way of catching up with those who think they're untouchable. It doesn't matter how powerful you are or how much control you think you have. When you do wrong, it will eventually come back to you. Harris learned that the hard way, but Nia's courage also showed us that change is possible. Every time someone stands up against injustice, they inspire others to do the same. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stand up for what's right, even when it felt impossible? Maybe you've had to speak out when everyone else stayed quiet. Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear about how you handled it and what you learned. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more about real-life moments of justice and change, make sure to like this video and subscribe. We've got more powerful stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the truth is all it takes to change everything.